Just give me one quick second. All right. So we'll talk about Apex triggers today. So what is Apex trigger? An Apex trigger is an Apex code or block of Apex code that executes before or after the following types of operations: insert, update, delete, and delete. So a piece of code which can be executed before or after one of these operations: insert, update, delete, and delete. All right. So sometimes it may happen that before someone creates a record, you just want to execute some code, or before someone edits a record, you might want to execute some code, right? That is where our Apex trigger comes into picture, right? So anytime where when you feel that you need to write some logic which needs to get executed before or after any of these operations, then you will use Apex trigger. Now here there is no requirement for a page or a user interface. The end user is trying to save a record, code will get executed and it will do whatever we instructed to do. For example, if I use a logic that every time someone is trying to update a contact, and after the update I want to check whether the email ID has been updated or not. In case email ID has been updated, I just want to throw a message saying that email you cannot update the email ID. Something like this, right? So this code needs to be executed before the update happens. Correct? So this way, any particular code or logic that you want to execute and on any of these operations need to be written as an Apex trigger, right? Now, types of Apex triggers. There are two types of Apex triggers. One is before trigger, one is after trigger. What is a before trigger? Before triggers are used to update or validate record values before they are saved to the database. So what's a before trigger? Before trigger is the code which is used to validate the data before the record is saved into the database. Got it? The second one is after trigger. What's an after trigger? After triggers are used to access field values that are set by the system and to effect changes in other records. So what's an after trigger? After triggers are used for setting the values and to effect the changes in some other record. So that's what an after trigger is. So you can execute the trigger logic before the operation happens, before insert or update whatever happens, or you can execute the logic after the insert or update whatever has happened. Now the point here is, the point that you need to note is that before and after, both of these have different functionalities. Before trigger, when we are talking about before trigger, it is used for updating or validating the record values, right? Whether the values which you are entering are correct or not. At the same time, your after trigger are used to access the field values and set some value for system operations. Right? understanding the syntax of the trigger. Syntax of the trigger is pretty simple. You just have to use the keyword trigger, and then you have to put a space, write the name of the trigger, on object name, which object you are creating the trigger on, and within brackets you will put the event, right? Trigger event. When do you want the trigger to be executed? As I was saying, before and after. So do you want the trigger to be executed before insert or after insert, before update or after update? That way you have the option of defining the event here. So very simple syntax. The keyword trigger space, name of the trigger, on, name of the object, name of the event. That's it. What code you want to execute, that should be written inside this, and that's it. Your trigger is ready. Right. Where the trigger event can be a comma separated list of one or more of the following events. So where the trigger events can be one of these or multiple of them. Before insert, before update, before delete, after insert, after update, after delete, after undelete. Correct. So these are the events which are allowed. So if you see whatever I showed you in the last slide, insert, update, delete, here we have those things only. Before insert, after insert, before update, after update, before delete, after delete. So that's it. Correct. So that's what we have for trigger. Now that's how you write trigger. So if you have to write a trigger on account, so you should say trigger T1 or whatever you want to name it, T1 on account, and here you can write the event. You can write the code here. Let's say you want this trigger to get executed before the record, before a new account is created. So you should say before insert. You want this code to get executed before a record is updated also. That's it. Got it? Very simple syntax. That's it. You have to identify for which object you want to write the trigger. You will have to identify what event you want the trigger to fire on. So you know the event can be before insert. I showed you the list of 7 events. You have to decide on which event. You have to decide the name of the trigger, and then you just have to write that code that you want to execute. That's it. Fine. So creating trigger, you should just have 3 answers to 3 questions. Which object, which event, and of course what code or what logic to be executed. Object can be any object, standard or custom object. Event can be one of those 7 events. What code you want to execute is completely up to you. You can write whatever you want to do. Right? Now, all right. Let me say I want to write a trigger for opportunity. Try and understand this. I want to put a trigger on opportunity, and my logic is that if a new opportunity is being created, listen to it carefully. If a new opportunity is being created which has an amount less than 10,000, if new op is being created and it has amount less than 10,000, do not allow the record to be created. This is what my logic is. Any new opportunity which has an amount less than 10,000 should not be allowed. Alright. Now I will need to achieve this using a trigger. I just talked about the syntax here. Alright. I want you guys to write the code for this trigger. You understand the syntax? I just want to see how you can write the code. And let me also tell you this, that I know you are not gonna write it correctly, but still I want you to give it a try. It's very important for you to understand how trigger should be written. Alright. So we'll take like 5 minutes. Try to write it. Try to think about it, how it should be written. Time starts now. We are clear with the requirement, right? We have to write a trigger. We just talked about the trigger. I told you that for opportunities, if a new opportunity is being created and amount of that opportunity is less than 10,000, the system should not allow creation of that record. Now let's see how do you write it. 8 minutes for it. Do it quickly. Hello. Done. Anyone who has finished?
Actually, we are not knowing the condition. We are confused about it. I mean, what
Okay,
to write if
fine. Let's do one thing.
how-
You guys can see my screen.
yeah.
Let's try to formulate it here. Priya, have you written anything?
Uh,
No.
if I just started,
Okay. See.
like I put an if condition, that's all.
Okay, good. At least you put the if condition, so that's something which is required. See, programming is like any other language, right? So first of all, you will have to speak the incorrect language, then only someday you will start speaking correct language, and you'll have to be a little patient with that particular thing, right? So that's the reason why I want you guys to start thinking. The reason why I ask you to think about this is I want you to start thinking on those lines that acha, how am I exactly gonna write this? How am I gonna? At least you thought of, Priya thought of that if will be required somewhere because there is an if condition. That's what we're talking about. Okay, so let's start writing it. Okay, as a team. First is trigger keyword that has to be written. There's no doubt in that. There has to be a trigger name. Go by the syntax that we have done, right? There has to be a trigger name. Trigger name, we can do anything. We can call it T123. On object name, what is the object here?
Opportunity.
So, let's see. And what event are we going to talking about here?
Before insert Jit.
Before insert. See. So far we are good. Syntax wise, we have put things in place. Now I have to write the logic here. Correct? What is my logic? That the opportunity which is being inserted, if the amount of that opportunity is less than 10,000 or not, right? That's what I have to check. So we have to bring in uh, S object here, opportunity O, if O dot amount
Opportunity
is less than 10,000,
greater than 10.
O dot add error. Now you do not know this, that O dot this add error is a method, but that's fine. Um, Error message. Alright, seems okay, but this is not correct. Just to make you understand the logic. Still, it's still not correct. What is not correct here? Opportunity O is just an S object. Can you guys please mute your microphones? Microphones mute, please. Microphone on mute, please, everyone. Right. So opportunity O I have defined, right? So opportunity O is just an S object, but where I have defined that O is the record which is being inserted, right? In a generic way, I've written opportunity O, but where have I said this that O is the record which is being inserted? I'm supposed to check the record which is being inserted, right? The record which is in context. That's what the requirement is. Here, to O is null. So for that, to get the record in context, there are certain context variables. It becomes important for me to fetch the record which is in context, which is being inserted, right? So for that, Salesforce has given us a few context variables to access those records. Right? And here we have our context variables. Okay. All triggers define implicit variables that allow developers to access runtime context. So these context variables will allow you to access the runtime context records. Got it? So there is a context variable called new. What does this do? It returns a list of the new versions of the SObject records. Okay. So basically, to make it simpler, this is a little complex language. To make it simple, this new variable, the variable called new, basically returns the list of records which are being inserted or updated. Okay. So we will write it trigger dot new. Trigger dot new basically returns list of records being inserted or updated. Correct? So for trigger.new, I have to go and check if the amount is less than 10,000 or not. For the trigger.new, I have to do, because that's what, this is the variable which holds the list of records. Correct? That's what I'm saying. So for trigger.new, I have to go and check whether the amount is less than 10,000 or not. So instead of this opportunity O, what I should be doing, I should be saying if trigger.new.amount is less than 10,000. Okay, but this is also not correct. Ideally, this is what I should be doing. Trigger.new is the set of records and I should be checking the amount for them, right? But this is also not correct. Why this is not correct? What is the problem with this? Anyone? Trigger.new is a variable which holds the set of records. Why can't I write this? What is the problem with this?
Uh, Typecasting trigger.new is a variable, not a object name, because dot amount should be from opportunity object type.
Trigger.new is
I mean,
an SObject variable.
yeah.
So that's fine. It's an SObject, right? It returns SObject. So there is no problem with that.
Okay.
SObject can also be a variable, right? There can be a variable which holds SObject, where the data type is SObject, correct?
Uh, Ajit, Ravi, yeah,
Hmm.
trigger.new is the holds the list of opportunities as objects. So we need to insert opportunity o dot trigger.new is correct.
Yes. So what Ravi is talking about is, and which he is correct also. See, trigger.new is list of records. It's not one record. I cannot compare I cannot check amount of a list. Trigger.new can be 5 records, it can be 200 records, it can be 1000 records, right? So I cannot say go and check trigger.new.amount because that is nothing, right? So what you have to do, you have to create a loop also. So we have to write a loop, say opportunity O in trigger.new. Now inside this loop, I will check opportunities individually. For each opportunity O in trigger.new, go and check O.amount and throw error. O.add error. Error message. This is it. So simple. Got Got it? So this is how simple it's gonna be for
Can you explain
opportunity.
it one more time? Opportunity O trigger dot new. What this? What I?
So this is a loop actually. So what I have done, because this is trigger.new is a list of records, it returns multiple records.
Yeah.
So I cannot compare
Yeah.
all the records at once. So what I've done, I've defined one as object O. Okay. O is gonna be
Mm-hmm.
one instance of trigger.new, right? So it will take the first record, go and check if the amount is less than 10,000. Okay. If it is fine, it
Oh,
will go and
okay,
run the
okay.
loop again. Correct. So it's gonna run the loop again and again.
You're using polymorphism thing here, right?
What
Like
is
what's
that?
that?
Polling?
Polymorphism opportunity O. You have assigned the list of opportunity type records to the opportunity O. Means parent O. O will be the super opportunity type, right?
Yes,
And
correct.
you are assigning each trigger in that opportunity. Means it's
Right.
reference to it is referencing to every trigger record. Okay, you are saying that.
Right, it's gonna check it for every trigger record, correct?
Okay, okay.
Right? So now that's it. Now we are good. So this part of the code is fine. So whenever you are writing trigger, you always have to write it in a for loop. Why? Because my context variable trigger.new or any other context variable, they return list of records. Why do they return list of records? Why doesn't it return single record? So that the trigger can work fine for bulk data operation as well as single record. Got it? So that's the reason why. See, if it's a list of record, even if there is one record in the list, it will work. Right? So for that reason, they have defined the context variables as list. So data type for trigger.new is list of the S object. So that's it. So every time you're writing a trigger, you always have to write trigger for bulk records, so that your trigger works absolutely fine even if bulk data operation is happening on the database, right? And that's it. So your code is ready. This is your code, right? The reason why I was actually coming through a slightly longer route is I wanted you guys to understand how we are following this logic, right? Now once you have understood this, you can write any other logic. So let's say we want to write for account. If the industry of the account is energy, then I want to throw error. Alright. If the energy of the account being created is energy, then I want to throw error. So what should we write? You guys tell me, I'll just write. Let's type it. How should I write it?
Can you come again, Jeet? What
If
if
the
you have to
industry of the
energy?
account is energy,
Okay.
then it should throw error. While creating a new account, if the industry is energy, then it should throw error. How should
Okay.
I write?
Trigger name.
Trigger
Trigger.
name can be related to.
Mm,
Then
on account before insert account A
for loop.
for yeah for loop
For each.
account.
For. So you can
Account
actually kind of consider this also a part of syntax, because your code anyhow has to come till here. Though it's not part of the trigger syntax, but you can anyhow consider this also part of syntax for basic triggers. Gradually you will start understanding other ways also. But for account A in trigger.new, and then whatever logic you
if
have,
A dot
If
A dot
dot
industry is
industry equals to energy.
equals to yeah
that's it. And you guys know how to
A
write.
dot add error
Either
In that error method.
add error yeah.
add error is the name of the method. You just have to put the error message here. That's it. So your trigger is ready. Like now, let's see, where do we need to write all these things? We have understood how to write the trigger, but where do I write the trigger? You will write your trigger in triggers. So if you have to write a trigger for opportunity, you should just go to setup, customize opportunity, and you should customize opportunities, and you should write the trigger here. If you have to write a trigger for account, then you should go to setup, customize account. Click on new. Now this is where you have to write the trigger. Okay. So see, the syntax part is already here. Trigger, name of the trigger, on opportunity, before event here. So let me just copy and paste the trigger that I've already written. Right. So my trigger is ready. The trigger is ready now. The next thing that we have to do is just go and try creating a record and opportunity and see if your trigger is working fine or not. Click on new. Let me put 8,000 here. See, throws error message. Fine. Right. So let's talk about the other context variables. Let's understand a little more about other context variables. We saw one context variable called new. Let's see other context variables. Okay. There are a few Boolean context variables like is insert, is update, is delete, is before, is after, is and delete. Okay. These context variables can be used to determine, these are Booleans, which means they will return true or false. These variables. They will only return true or false. Now, these will basically determine if the event of the trigger being executed on that particular occasion is insert or update or delete or before or after or delete, whatever. So, is insert context variable will return a true if the trigger was fired due to an insert operation. Is update will return a true if it was fired due to update operation. The same way, delete, before, after, and delete, all these. Right. Where will we need this? For example, now my logic is a little different. I tell you that if new op is created with amount less than 10,000, show error. Alright, so this is one thing. Okay. If an existing op is updated with amount less than 15k, then show error, or say 5k. Alright, now I have two logics on the same opportunity. I'm talking about two things here. If a new opportunity is being created, then check if the amount is less than 10,000. So minimum amount for a new opportunity being created is 10,000. Okay. And at the same time, I'm talking about one more logic. If an existing record is being updated, then the minimum amount for an update, an opportunity which is being updated, minimum amount for that is going to be 5,000. So here I'm dealing with two events, correct? Here when you write the trigger, we'll have to deal with two events. Which two events? For executing this logic, now I have these two logics. For executing these two logics, I'll have to deal with two different events, correct?
Before
Yes,
insert and before update.
before insert and before update. All right. But just putting the events is not resolving the issue because the logics are also different. So my trigger should be something like this. Trigger, let's say T3 on opportunity. Events are going to be two, before insert, before update. So I want this trigger to fire on both these events. But that's the simpler part. The difficult part is that I want different logics to work based on which event actually fired the trigger. So in that case, what I have to do, I have to also figure out whether the trigger was fired because of an insert operation or update operation. Correct? Because in both the situations, uh, the code will get executed. So I just need to check whether it was fired due to an insert or an update operation. So how will you do that? Same opportunity O in trigger.new, and here we have to write this logic where you say if sorry, if O dot amount less than 10,000. Okay, but along with this I also need to check less than 10,000 is the logic if it's a trigger fired due to insert operation. So you just have to say if trigger dot is insert, and so I told you trigger dot is insert is going to return a true if it's due to an insert operation. So it will return a true if it's an insert operation. So if trigger dot is insert and amount is less than 10,000, then throw an error with that add error. Else, if trigger dot is update and code dot amount is less than 5,000, then throw. Fine. So do you see the use of this context variable? How helpful it is. So you can actually check whether what was the event which fired the trigger. And if you have any such logic where you want to execute different code block or different logics for different events, you can use this. Clear on it? Is it simple? Now any record which is being inserted for it, it's going to check if the amount is 10,000, then it will throw error. If a record is being updated for it, it will see if the amount is less than 5,000, then it will throw error. Fine. Apart from that, there are a few more context variables like trigger.old, then new map, old map. Trigger.old is basically list of records, and trigger.old is used in case of an update or delete. Okay, like trigger.new is used for insert and update records. So the records which are about to be inserted into the database. Trigger.old is the data which is about to be uh, removed from the database, which is about to be taken out of the database. So that will happen in case of update or delete. Right. Then you have new map and old map. So this is basically map of IDs to new version of records. Okay, so this is basically the map of IDs of the record set of records in the trigger.new. So if you don't understand the new map, old map, just hold on to it for some more time or do a few more examples. You will start understanding the mapping concept also. Then there is size. Trigger dot size is a variable which basically holds a number and it returns the number of records in a certain trigger. All right. So if there are 100 or 50 or 10, it will basically return the number of records which are being processed. So basically, the number of records in trigger.new or trigger.old. So how many records are there in this? That will be written, right? So that's about the triggers. Let me know if you guys have any question or doubt here about the trigger, the way we write it. Now you guys have to go back and write a few sample small triggers, stuff like this. Anyone has a question or doubt, please let me know. No, are we good? All right. So there are a few more ways of writing Apex and calling Apex. Apex trigger is just one of them. Uh, so tomorrow, once we meet, we are going to look into the other ways of invoking Apex. Right? Okay, guys. So I'll see you all tomorrow, same time, same link. Thank you. Bye. You guys can close your GoToMeeting window also. Mine is actually taking a bit of time. I don't know what's wrong with it.
Hello, Ji.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm Shubham. Can we get the videos of these things because they are seem very complicated and we have to revise it.
Okay. You will
Will
get
be
the
good if
videos. Usually, as I have told you earlier, that videos are usually shared weekly on a weekly basis. So these
yeah,
videos
the last class
majorly,
in the Discord.
yeah. So let me see, as soon as it can be done, I will definitely share it with you. Fine.
Okay, okay.
You guys can leave the meeting because it's showing some difficulty from my side and I'm not able to close it. Hello. Here. Yes, I will tell you. Uh-huh. Mhm. Okay. Mhm. Fine. 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 Sounds good. Okay.